ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jenny, and the topic of my research is Tourist Demand and Willingness to Pay for Interpretive Service, a case of Lugang historic areas. Here's the content of my presentation: introduction, literature review, and methodology. Here's an outline of my introduction. For my research background, nearly 91% of citizens traveled at least once domestically in 2007, and the average number of trips per person was 5.57. This is from a survey conducted by Republic of China Tourism Bureau in 2008. And according to the same survey, the percentage of Taiwanese citizens who preferred visiting cultural and historical sites as a cultural experiencing activity was increasing. And this increase of popularity of historical sites reveals the importance of historical tourism in Taiwan. Okay, distinct benefits of historical tourism include the potential of a clean industry and a valuable source of income and employment. And as for interpretation, it allows visitors to generate a better understanding of the history and significance of events, people, and objects with which the site is associated. Also, interpretation is one of the key factors to a sustainable tourism. The study site Lugang is situated on the west central coast of Taiwan in Changhua County. And this is an enlarged map of Changhua County. And around 200 years ago, Lugang was the second largest city in Taiwan. However, in the early 20th century, due to the silting of the harbor and the conservative residents' refusal to construct railways and highways, led to the decline of the economy in Lugang. However, it's also this conservation that allowed for the preservation of many traditional features in Lugang. Okay, and there are one primary historic heritage and 6 tertiary heritage sites designated by the nation in Lugang. In addition, there are 7 sites designated by Changhua County as valuable heritage sites, and this demonstrates the abundance of historic areas in Lugang. Here are the statements of problem. Only few of the past studies have examined the need for interpretive services and the value of these services to visitors in heritage sites. Also, by probing the visiting patterns and the perceptions of the tourists, more could be considered to increase satisfaction of the tourists, and this may further increase revisitation. Therefore, the purposes of my research is to use CVM, contingent valuation method, to estimate the willingness to pay, WTP, of the tourists for interpretive service in Lugang, and to analyze the WTP determinants. More specifically, this study aims to determine the perceptions of tourists' willingness to pay, and WTP value for interpretive service in Lugang, and also the determinants, implications, and suggestions. Here's an outline of my literature review. For the interpretive service, interpretation is an educational activity which aims to reveal meanings and relationships to people about the places they visit and the things they see, which in turn improves the quality of visitor experience. And this is defined by Tilden in 1977. Tilden was one of the first researchers in this field. And the goal of interpretation is to increase visitor awareness, promote learning, appreciation, and understanding of places so that tourists develop empathy towards heritage conservation, culture, and landscape. Interpretation services benefit both the heritage sites and tourists and draw public support by enhancing experiences and educating visitors in appropriate behaviors to conserve the historical sites. Okay. And interpretive service can be divided into 2 types. First type is called personal or attended. These include guided tours, presentations, drama, etc. The other type is called non-personal or unattended, and these include brochures, signs, and exhibit centers, etc. And this research will only focus on personal interpretive service due to a variety of benefits. And I'll explain some of the benefits in this slide. Okay, personal interpretive service can be tailored to meet different audience needs. So it's not as dead as the non-personal interpretive service. Also, it allows for more interaction between interpreters and visitors. Visitors can ask questions and obtain more knowledge from the interpreters. And it's more entertaining and memorable. Also, interpreters may notice problems and report to the management immediately before the problems become critical. And the method I will apply in my research is called CVM. It's a standard approach to measuring economic values of non-market goods. So interpretive service is a type of non-market good. And in this method, a researcher has to describe a hypothetical scenario in detail and ask the respondents to state their WTP under the hypothetical scenario. And there are several elicitation techniques with this method. They are bidding game approach, payment card, dichotomous choice, and open-ended. And I will introduce each in detail. Okay, the first one, bidding game approach. In this approach, the researcher will select from a range of prices, okay, and these are predetermined by a pretest. For example, if I randomly select $100 and I ask the respondent, are you willing to pay $100? If the respondent says yes, then I will go up one bid. If the respondent says yes again, I will keep going up until the respondent says no, that's too much. Then I will go back down one bid. So 300 would be the final answer, right? So it's the highest WTP of this participant. Okay, the advantage of this approach is that it provides a market-like situation. The respondents can consider their preferences carefully and come to a more accurate decision. However, it's more time-consuming and it costs more. And also, it might generate starting point bias. Starting point bias occurs when the researcher provides a certain price in the beginning of an elicitation. For example, if I asked you, are you willing to pay $100? You might think that this might be the minimum that I should pay. So this might affect the result. And the second approach is called payment card. The difference between this approach and the last approach is that in this approach, I will show all of the price selections. Whereas in the bidding game approach, I only show one at a time. Okay, so I will show all the cards and ask which one would you select. And this could reduce starting point bias because I didn't state a particular price in the beginning. But it may not reflect true value. For example, if I want to pay $350, it's not on here, right? And also, it might generate order bias because when you show the cards to the participants, you arrange them in sequence, and this might affect their decision. Okay, this next one is called dichotomous choice. It's very simple. The researcher simply just randomly select one price and ask respondents to say yes or no to this price. It's easy to answer, but it might cause starting point bias or yes saying problem. Yes saying problem occurs when the respondent doesn't know whether to agree or disagree with the price, so they just say, okay, yes. And the final technique is called open-ended. In this method, the researcher has to describe a scenario in detail and ask if blah blah blah, how much are you willing to pay for blah blah blah. Okay, and the participants can freely state their WTP, so any price. And this reduces starting point bias, is convenient and less time consuming. It can reflect true value because there is no predetermined prices. But there might be some non-responses because if the participants are not familiar with the product or the services, it's hard for them to state a price. However, this can be reduced in my research because I select participants who have just visited Luga, right? So they have some familiarity with the study site, and they have an idea as to how much they want to pay. And there are some possible biases with this method. The first two I just mentioned earlier, and information effect occurs when WTP is affected by the information provided to the participants. And hypothetical bias is when the hypothetical market is significantly different than the real market. And strategic bias happens when